Hi. guilty and being guilty are two different things. There's a list of things we can feel guilty about without having ever done anything wrong. Triplet number 2 is shame. Guilt says I did something bad. Shame says I am bad. And shame loves to focus on blame, and it doesn't judge the actions of the individuals, but the individuals themselves. So it kind of gets personal with us. And then triplet number 3 is regret. And there's two kinds of regret. Regret of omission and regret of commission, things we have done. And we all have regrets. And I think when we was talking about that last week, I saw a lot of head noddings. We all have some kind of regrets. So, but as we get into that today, let me ask you a question. If somebody gave you $1 million right now, what would you do with it? If somebody gave you $1 million, what would you do with it? Pay off your house. And we always think big like that. Let's either buy a new house or pay off our house or bills or whatever. What else? Anybody else got anything else?
We're going to get 10% to the church.
10% to the church. Yeah. Invest it, where it'll last a long time. I mean, that, we always think about, unless we all have a, rich great aunt that dies and gives it to us, most of us, when we think about the $1 million stuff, we start thinking about lottery, and, that's about the only way we can get it. But if, I guess it could happen to us, but it's never happened to me. So just kind of something to think about, just get some perspective on that. All right. As we, before we start moving forward with this, and I told y'all, from the onset, we were going to kind of change up as we got into it just a little bit of how we were doing stuff. Next week, if y'all looked ahead in your books, week number 9, it's called Sharing Your Story. Well, we're not doing that next week, okay? And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one is time that we only have in here to do something like that, and also the confidentiality of that when we do that. However, in talking with Jason, and we both kind of came to the same conclusion when we talked. Said, yeah, I was thinking about that too, kind of thing. We'd love to do it on a Tuesday night, December the 14th, where we could come in here and have some finger foods. Everybody just come in here for a time of fellowships and be able. The sharing your story is something very important. Whether you actually, like I said, Jason and I have, shared, Reboot first responders with well over 200 first responders. And we always tell them, you don't have to share anything, but write it down. But many times after the first person gets up, then the next person will get up. And not only does it help you when you're sharing what's on your heart, you're helping somebody else. I've heard that so many times. Wow, what they said really helped me. And it's just a, thing, but would everybody be okay to doing that on that Tuesday night, the 14th? Y'all not doing the ladies thing anymore, right?
Right, that's the Bible studies over
Okay, so that's kind of, so would everybody be okay with that, you think? And you don't, like I said, the main thing is write it down. And we'll kind of go over that here in just a little bit, how to do that. Just write your story down. And there's some parameters in that we'll touch at the very end, but it's super, super important. We have, so next week we'll do week 10 actually in the lesson. We'll do it, next week, and we'll go over it a little bit more then. But it's the big part of how this works and comes together. And I know everybody just cringed. My wife already told me, she said, I ain't doing that. But I've heard so many people say that. And some of them don't, but for the majority of people, they do. They sit there and go, because learning all this stuff and the outward, expression of it is a big deal. But so many times people get healing from listening to someone else going, okay, I can do this. I can heal from something. All right? Okay. So starting it today, which is, like I said, restoring our identity, Reboot starts with the premise that each and every person has the potential to do something extraordinary, and that includes you and us, and we do. God created us for a purpose, and that we were fearfully and wonderfully made, as it says in Psalms 139. You're regarded to be extremely important, valued, accepted, connected, and loved. And many times we don't feel that. But if we know it's, like you said, just to be true, why doesn't it feel true all the time? Why doesn't it feel true to be accepted or valued? Why don't we see our purposes clearly? Sometimes we may feel more like an accident than someone that was, wonderfully made. And along the way, there may have been people or events in our lives that shaped our vision of ourselves. And that's what happens a lot. People said or did things that made us feel discarded or unwanted. Conversely, we have, had people in our lives that built us up also. So a lot of that comes in from the outside. And all of your experiences, the words that said about you by others, are your internal monologue, all about to combine and shape your identity. They help define you as a person. Who am I? Have anybody ever asked yourself, who am I? I have asked that along our lifetime, span. Who am I? Who really am I? And there's two, thoughts about this subject. One says your actions shape your identity, and the other says your identity shapes your actions. And we can kind of see a parallel in that and how it could possibly go both ways. We aren't born with a high level of personal insight and self-reflection. The experiences we have shape how we see ourselves. Most of us frame our identity through the eyes of others, such as parents, caregivers, teachers, peers, partners. And these early influences have an enormous impact on how we view our role and position in the world around us. And sometimes those influences make us feel valued and regarded. We like to see ourselves as such, right? Everybody likes to think themselves as being okay, being, hey, I'm important. But many, many times we're not, and many things cause that. We'll look at that in just a minute. But some of the key influencers are unpredictable, unreliable, battling their own demons. And it can be extremely difficult to form an accurate view of who we really are. So it makes us feel insecure, unimportant, and even unlovable. When we experience trauma, our self-perception is oftentimes shaken to the core. If trauma happened when you was a child, you may have, had strived, whatever you want to call it, to be, to feel like you had to fight for love, from your parents. You really had to do something. And they call that an earner's mentality. I've got to earn my place, and all of that. If I do it a certain way, and maybe, just maybe, I can earn that love and affection from someone. If your trauma happened later in life, it can have a profound effect on you as well. Where you see yourself as rational, self-sufficient, and strong, perhaps you now feel afraid, confused, powerless, and helpless. So many ways, in our everyday walk can change from one day to the next. And the effects of this destructive, self-talk doesn't remain in the psychological realm. They bleed into our behaviors. Our plans, activities, values, ambitions are all shaped by this traumatic experience. And that's what it's been. It's been a traumatic experience that's got us that way. Following trauma, we often end up acting in a manner that supports how we feel about ourselves. Anybody ever kind of get, something happens to you and that's how you really feel about yourself? We might feel unworthy. If we feel unworthy, we act unworthy. If we feel unlovable, we'll search desperately for someone around us to love us, and sometimes in the wrong places. If we feel devalued, we will sell ourselves short. And these feelings are, further supported by the shame that we feel. You remember what shame was earlier? What makes us identify and attacks us personally. Guilt says I did something bad, and shame says I am bad. That's where we get into this. And a person seeing themselves as bad will not be able to find stability because they don't have a foundation to build upon. Because everything's kind of been built up by what we thought was the right way. And I kind of like this quote: a person who doesn't know who they are will never become who they can be. Anybody agree with that? In 1957, there was an Indian philosopher that said, "You're not one person, but three. The one you think you are, the one others think you are, and the one you really are." Y'all agree with that? Yes or no? Why? We told y'all, and I know Jason has and I have, this is kind of, in a lot of ways. So the role, what role these, three sources play in answering the question, who are we? We got to first look at the person other people think we are. So we're going to go to source number one. And this is where the sources come from, others, what others feel about us. It's human nature to care what others think of us. Anybody ever really got to that point where we don't care what nobody says? We all do to some, degree. And it can be a driving force in our life. In the age, and unfortunately, in this age we live in now, the information that's out there travels really quick, right? We can thank social media for that. And it gets out there and it's shared around and things are said, and, a lot of people, I guess, would add to it, listen to it, or whatever. And rather than having just a small group of people that would do it, now you have a lot. I mean, that's numbers, a lot. Then we become tempted to believe what others think we are rather than who we actually are. And that's kind of what drives us. It's like, if you lived in a cul-de-sac and a group of cavemen were are attacking you, you want to, we find ourselves wanting to be safe in numbers, right? So everybody in that cul-de-sac, you want to know that they got your back and they want to know you got theirs, and everybody bands together, correct? But what happens if something happens and there's a division in that? Then you got to pick a side. This side of the cul-de-sac wants to do it this way, and this side of the cul-de-sac wants to do it that way, and you're sitting there going, which way do I go to? And so you find yourself having to make a decision with that. What do I really feel? Which way do I really want to go? What do I really believe? So the problem, is relying on others to determine identity is that their life isn't that their life is being shaped, it's yours. And this is one of the things, other people don't always know what's best for us, and they don't have to live out the consequences of the advice they offer. Other people don't always know what's best for us, and they don't have to live out the consequences of the advice they offer. Anybody ever had people just give you all kind of advice, and you listen to it, and you sit there and go, no, you don't even know what I'm going through, really. But the thing is, they can give you advice, but they don't have to live it out, what's going on. They do, and we all mean well in doing that. But because, that's because they don't know their own identity. There are many others that, we turn to validation when we don't know who they are either. So they're looking for someone else in the group, for acceptance as well. Like, they don't know who they are. So they're trying to find a way to fit in. But this insecurity breeds insecurity. And it becomes that old snowball of bleh. All of those things have been talking about. On page 80, on the fill in the blank part, it says, we can't find stability with a foundation that is constantly shifting due to public opinion. We can't find stability with a foundation that is constantly shifting due to public opinion. Don't let someone who doesn't know your value tell you how much you're worth. Many times we let that happen. All right, and source number 2 is ourselves. At some age, we stop caring about what others think. We always think that, we all get there sooner than later, but we still think, care, but maybe not as much. When this happens, there's usually a sense of enlightenment that occurs. Many of us look inward towards self-discovery, believing the answer lies within our own minds. We reflect, in our life and develop our own sense of identity. and consult our own selves to determine who we are. So we kind of start looking and really start studying what's inside of us to determine who we are. So when we hear somebody, kind of describe who we are, we can disregard it. But we have to ask ourselves this question: how reliable and trustworthy is our assessment of ourselves? How reliable and trustworthy is your assessment of yourself? Everybody in here perfectly reliable? No. We can be either extremely self-confident one moment or easily embarrassed the next. We just go one way to the other. Our view of ourselves is extremely fickle, and almost anything can cause bias in our self-assessment. It'd be like, do the clothes I'm wearing make me look heavy, or does this person I'm meeting with think I'm funny, or will I get nominated for that promotion at work? We all sit there and ask ourselves these questions, and we start that inner turmoil of not being able to really give a conclusive answer to that. But yet, most of us value our own opinion more than we ought. That's kind of crazy to hear, isn't it? Most of us value our own opinion more than we ought. If you look to Google and Google how to find yourself, the pages are going to just light up with all these things and activities and all these things, that people have put out there, that how you find yourself. But the deeper question is this: what do I actually believe? What do I believe happens after death? What is my purpose? Why was I created? And what is the most important thing in my life? There's a lot of deep questions, answers that can come to those deep questions right there, right? Ma'am?
And there's no one answer to a lot of them.
And there's no one answer to a lot of them. And these are important questions to answer, but without solid answers to these questions, because there's a lot of answers, stability is nearly impossible. These questions get to the meaning and purpose of our existence and require some level of inward reflection. However, we are unlikely to find the answers to all of life's big questions within our own thoughts. Things get too big, too complex, too overwhelming too quickly. And so we need a broader frame of reference. We started this in our own mind and started getting there, and all of a sudden it's mushroomed out, and we've got more things than we can answer. So we got to get some answers from somewhere, right? So source number 3 is our spirituality. That just won't come out this morning. After we find the opinions of others and our own self-assessment lacking, like I said, we start looking within ourselves. We look to something or someone bigger than ourselves for matters of an identity. We turn to our spirituality. Somebody say that. It just ain't coming out this morning. Sorry. It just got hung up somewhere in there, so it just ain't happening. We look to our Creator to help us to find that purpose and worth which was created. On page 82, and fill in the blank there is we were created. Nothing has ever been created without a Creator. Nothing has been created without a Creator. And we know who our Creator is. 100%. We know who that is. As I started out today's lesson, I said something about we were fearfully and wonderfully made. And that's right. And we have the ability that each and every person has the potential to do something extraordinary. And that includes us, all of us. The key to finding ourselves isn't within our own minds or the opinions of others. It is found in the purpose and meaning and value of the Creator. Remember, we are created beings. We have a Creator. So how does God feel about us? And in your books there, I'm going to read these out, and y'all just kind of follow along. I'm not going to give the reference. I'm just going to read what's said. God says, "You may not know me, but I know everything about you. I know when you sit down and when you rise up. Even the very hairs on your head are numbered. For you are made in my image. In me you live and move and have your being. For you are my offspring. I knew you before you were even conceived. You were not a mistake, for all your days are written in my book. I determined the exact time of your birth and where you should live. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. My plan for your future is always filled with hope. My thoughts towards you are countless as the sand on the shore. For you are my treasured possession. I want to show you great and marvelous things. If you seek me with all your heart, you will find me. When you are brokenhearted, I am close to you. One day I will wipe away every tear from your eyes. I am able to do more than you could possibly imagine. For in Jesus, my love for you is revealed. He came to demonstrate that I am for you, not against you, and to tell you that I am not counting your sins. His death was the ultimate expression of my love for you. I gave up everything I loved that I might gain your love. If you receive the gift of my Son, Jesus, you received me. And nothing will ever separate you from my love again. That's what God says. All those things are what God says. You're the one that's, whose hairs are numbered. Some of us, he ain't got to count as high anymore than he did once before. We're the ones whose thoughts are known before we even think them. The one whose life was carefully considered before your birth. The one whom the Father thinks about more times each day than there are grains of sand on the seashore. And we know there's a lot of sand out there, right? Anytime you go to the beach, because you bring home half of it. Seems like. You're the one. God has a picture for you on his refrigerator door if he had a refrigerator door. That's how important you are. Like we do our kids, all their little artwork and their little things they do and it's hanging on the refrigerator door. If God had a refrigerator door, our picture would be on there. You are not what others think of you, and you aren't only what you think of yourself. You are who God says you are, period, end of story. So on page 84, the blanks, fill in the blanks, so God says you are. You are who God says you are. And all that sounds good, right? But along the way, just like everything else, we got identity traps. Something goes wrong. The perfect and untarnished view of ourselves, gets beat up, abused, and neglected. And the identity traps make it extremely difficult to answer the question, who am I? By distorting the truth. So, for the rest of the time today, we're going to talk about the steps needed to break free from those traps and really answer that question, who am I? On page 85 in your book, you're going to see a prayer. And I'm going to read it out loud. You can read it up here. It's kind of hard to read when your eyes closed, so you can, prayer doesn't always mean that, because I hope you don't close your eyes if you're praying going down the road. So we know we can do that. Father, I need your help to heal from the past, whether it is wounding, entanglement, sin, ungodly beliefs, or even demonic presence. I ask that you would guide me through the truth found in your word. Lord, help me place what you say above what anyone else says, including myself. I love you and trust you. So we start off with a prayer in that. Number 2 is make sense of your past. In order to uncover who we are and why we act the way we do, we have to know our own story. Research has shown that it isn't just the things that have happened to us that define who we become, but how much we've made sense of what happened to us. Unresolved traumas from our history inform the ways we act today. Last week, you had a homework assignment. I hope everybody is doing your homework assignment. But on page 74 through 76, there was ungodly beliefs that you were asked to review, kind of look in there and check them off, whatever. So what we're going to do today is, as we review that homework, pick 2 or 3 of those lies, and that's what they are, that you identified with, and consider the following questions on page 85 in your book. You kind of got to go back and forth maybe, but if you pick out 2 or 3 of those lies that you checked off, those ungodly beliefs, answer these questions. When was the first time I believed this about myself? What experience or person made me feel this way? How long have I believed this lie? And why did it impact me so deeply? If you want to just pick one, and that's your biggie, write it in there. What ungodly belief or basically lie that you identified with can you answer those questions about? You know, it could have been one event. It could have been a series of things that tripped us up. Satan's good about using microwave lies and slow cooker lies. But all they have one thing coming, they're all lies. So yeah, just answer those questions. When was the first time I believed that lie about yourself? What made you feel that way, or who made you feel that way? How long have you believed it? And why did it impact me so deeply? So we identified those things, and you got those questions there, and you're sitting there going, how am I going to, there's not enough room to write some of this stuff, but you can write some little key bullet points or whatever you need to do there. But the thing is, that's what we've been believing. That's basically in an agreement that we dealt up. So number 3 is we got to break those agreements. Breaking agreements is where we're at, number 3. It's because in order for those lies to grip us as tight as they have, and we believe them, we had to have agreed with them at some point. We had to say, okay, this is what's really happening. And what happened there is we kept hearing them and repeating them and believing them till that became, in a sense, who we are. In Proverbs 18:21, it says, words kill, words give life. They're either poison or fruit, you choose. We can't break the power of those words and beliefs by acknowledging them. We can break the power of those words and beliefs by acknowledging them and following the next 2 steps. Step number 1, break with harmful, internalized thought processes. A lot of those thought processes are, made you become critical, hostile attitudes towards self and others. And some of these gut reactions or behaviors may have been passed down by those who raised us. And here's the thing, we maybe feel a little bit of defensiveness arise as you walk through these steps. And we have to agree to break that agreement of the lies that we're kind of have, may have let rule our life. We got to agree to let go of those defensive patterns because we're a habit type people. Our every day is a habit for us, right? You get up and you have a certain routine. Well, that's a habit. Well, the habit of believing these lies is just what it is. It's a habit. So in your field guide on page 86, here's another prayer. But this is a fill in the blank prayer. And we're going to fill it in with as they apply to your life. Lord, I confess today that when whatever event happened, whatever happened to you, I was deceived and wounded and did not know enough to allow you to heal and protect my heart. I confess now that when this happened, I believed whatever lie, that was back on page 74, 76. But today, I call it a lie and ask you, for your freedom in this area. I ask for your help today as I confess my reliance on you for healing. So basically, you're calling out the event and you're calling out the lie to God. And you go, hey, I need you to help me through this. Because we've become so habit formed that we feel like that's part of who we are and that's what we're supposed to do. So just, and yeah, you probably got a lot of things in your book that you've checked off and thoughts. You can only do one at a time. You can only do one at a time. You got to get that one behind you, and then if there's another one, then you got to get the next one. And step 2, replace the lies with truth. We've heard it, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. It's not just an idea, it's fact. And we've all been, from the earliest childhood, we've been known that telling a lie can only result in having them tell more lies, right? I mean, we've all told our kids, you tell a lie, then you got to tell another lie to cover up that lie. And before long, you can't remember what lie you told, right? I mean, I was a kid. I lived that. So I know that one. But if you look back on page 83 in your book, and how God feels about you, the statements and scriptures from, we read earlier, do any of these truths contradict the lie you've been believing? And select one or more of those truth statements that apply to your own situation. And up under, we're supposed to read another prayer. And this is continue to help break that habit of those lies we've done. So as we, I read these, if we read these two prayers, the identity traps that you identified are there, and you replace it with God's truth. So this prayer is, Lord, I choose to agree with you and believe the truth, whatever the truth it is that that goes back there. I replace every lie and pattern of deception in this area. I thank you, God, for your love and care for me, and rejoice in that truth that whatever statement or scripture would go there that helps you fulfill that. And you might say, well, I've got more than one checked. Okay. Then you guess what? You get to say this prayer over and over. You can't break a habit or form a habit until you do it so many times. So if you create a new habit of believing the truth and getting rid of the lie that's been given to you, then that old habit's broken and the new habit comes in, and it's through the repetition of these prayers. And you take one, and when you feel like you've accomplished it, fill in the next one. Because step 4 is repeat. Anybody step into every identity trap at the same time and all of them happened at one time? Nope. They just kind of, every time we turn around, there's another one, and there's another one. So you can't, just like I was just talking about, you can't, think about getting out of them at the same time, all at one time. You have to do them one at a time. And you do that by just believing the truth that God gives us. Counteracting that lie that you may have checked off on those other pages with the God's truth. And once you're able to do that, and the truth will set you free and be able to get, to do that. So you take this and you keep doing this. You keep referring back to it. Like I told y'all, this is your book. Go back and refer back to it. Okay, I need to get another one. I'm good with that one. I need to take care of that other lie that's bothering me. And you keep doing it and keep doing it. Why? How do you know what's going to happen? Matthew 7:7 says, ask and keep on asking, seeking, keep on seeking, knocking, keep on knocking. Jesus always tells you to keep asking. Keep asking. When God created us, He knew He was going to face some hard times. In John 16:33, Jesus says, I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I will overcome the world. In this world, it's just set up for us to fail. That's what it is. It's set up for us to fail. And we have to do something a little bit more not to fail. And who do we turn to? The Creator who created this world to help us get where we don't get sucked down in these lies that Satan keeps throwing at us. Because that's all he does. He started off with a bang in the Garden of Eden, didn't he? It's twisting stuff, turning stuff. That's all he wanted to do from the beginning. And he's great at what he does. Am I the only one in here that knows that he can do that to us? He does it. He's the master of it. So what we have to do is replace the lies that he's been telling us with the truth that God's given us. Both of those are in this lesson. And you just have to go back and go, you write them out. This is a lie. God help me. This is the truth. I can overcome it and practice it. God don't want us to live in that lie, that thing, that identity that we have either through ourselves or imposed on by someone else that we feel like we are. God doesn't want us to live that way. But we, as the people we are, humans, we allow ourselves to get that way. And guess what? The truth is out there, and we know that. I mean, we hear it all the time, right? But sometimes we don't know really how to make that step to get out of that trap. And that's all it is just a trap. And just know that, call it for what it is. A lie is a lie. It's straight from the pits of hell. Slewfoot, get out of my way. I'm going to make this better for myself. And that's what you have to do, because once you identify, I'm not that person, I'm not that way, God says I'm this way, then you're able to take that next step forward. That next step forward. All right, so any questions? All right, like I said, next week we're gonna skip in your books the lesson number 9. We're going to number 10. But here's, your homework says for this